For 3 years, every dollar a customer wired to FTX landed in a bank account that was not FTX's. It belonged to Alameda Research, a separate company, a hedge fund, run by a different chief executive entirely. The customers were never told. Their statements still showed the balance. By November of 2022, $8 billion of that money was gone, spent on venture investments, on Bahamas real estate, on $40 million in political donations, on a Super Bowl commercial, on a stadium naming deal with the Miami Heat. Spent on everything except holding it for the people who deposited it. The account was called fiat at FTX. It was held at Silvergate Bank in San Diego. It was the only account most FTX customers ever wired their money to. The account was not FTX's. What that account reveals about how FTX worked will tell you something about the people who trusted the system that relied on it. How that account went unchecked for 3 years will tell you something about what trust actually costs when the person asking for it controls every part of the system you are trusting. Quick thing before we start, comment where you are watching from. These stories deserve a global audience. The mechanism was not clever, it was almost insultingly simple, and it worked for 3 years. FTX opened in May of 2019. Sam Bankman-Fried was 27 years old. From the first week, FTX needed a bank account to receive customer wire deposits. The problem was straightforward. Banks were reluctant to open accounts for cryptocurrency exchanges. The solution was Alameda Research. Alameda already had banking relationships. It already had accounts at Silvergate Bank. The Silvergate account was opened in the name of North Dimension, a subsidiary of Alameda that held no other business purpose. FTX gave customers this account number as the wire destination for their deposits. For 3 years from launch in 2019 through the end of 2022, every FTX customer who wired dollars to the exchange wired them into an account that Alameda controlled. The FTX software recorded a balance in the customer's account. The cash was in Alameda's account. The two numbers were not the same. Nobody outside the inner circle was ever told. By the spring of 2022, the gap between what FTX owed its customers and what Alameda could repay was already over $8 billion. Something had been wrong with this picture since the first wire transfer arrived. 3 people inside the company knew exactly how the account worked. The first was Carolyn Ellison. She was the chief executive of Alameda Research. She knew where the customer deposits were going. She asked multiple times for the borrowing from FTX to slow down. It did not slow down. The second was Gary Wang. He was FTX's chief technology officer. He had written the code himself. A single line in the FTX software that allowed Alameda's account to go negative without triggering automatic liquidation. The technical name for it inside the company was the Allow Negative Balance flag. The third was Nishad Singh. He was head of engineering. He had signed off on the code review. 3 people, 3 signatures in effect, on a permission that no other account on the platform was ever given. Anyone auditing the code would have seen the flag. Anyone reconciling FTX's books against Alameda's would have seen the loan. Anyone checking the Silvergate statements would have seen the routing. Nobody did. Not Prager Matus, FTX's accounting firm, not the Bahamas Securities Commission, not the major investors who each completed independent due diligence. For 3 years, the evidence was in a single bank statement at a single bank in San Diego. Nobody pulled the statements. What a reporter at CoinDesk found in November will change how you understand the whole story. The The mechanism worked like this. A customer in Texas wires $10,000 to FTX to buy Bitcoin. The wire instructions FTX provides point to the Silvergate account in the name of North Dimension, an Alameda subsidiary. The customer's FTX dashboard shows $10,000. The cash is in Alameda's account. Alameda uses the cash to trade, to lend out, to make venture investments, to fund real estate purchases in the Bahamas. In 2019, the gap was small. In 2020, it grew. By the spring of 2022, the gap was over $8 billion. 3 years, one account, one software flag. What Alameda did with the money was not subtle. $135 million for the naming rights to the Miami Heat arena, $40 million to political action committees, $300 million for property purchases in the Bahamas, a penthouse, top floor, Albany Resort, Bahamas, $30 million. Sam Bankman-Fried slept on a beanbag. The CoinDesk reporter who received a copy of Alameda's balance sheet in late October saw something that had been sitting in FTX's records for 3 years, and what she found in a single afternoon ended everything. Here is what CoinDesk found. Before we continue, Caroline Ellison asked for the Alameda borrowing to slow down. Gary Wang wrote the flag that made it invisible. Should they have walked out of FTX entirely? Drop your answer in the comments. I read everyone. On November 2, 2022, CoinDesk published a balance sheet showing that Alameda Research held roughly $5.5 billion of its assets in FTT, the token FTX itself had issued. Alameda's largest asset was a token printed by the company it was secretly borrowing customer money from. Binance saw the article. Within 48 hours, Binance announced it was selling its FTT holdings. The price collapsed. Customers tried to withdraw. The withdrawals froze. By November 11th, 9 days after the article, FTX filed for Chapter 11. $8 billion in customer deposits. Gone. 3 customers said something specific at sentencing. None of their words are abstract. They were not investors. They were not institutions. They were customers. Retail customers. The people whose dollars ran through the fiat at FTX account on the way to a stadium naming deal. Sunil Kavuri filed a victim impact statement with the court. He had been a Goldman Sachs banker. He held 2 million euros on FTX. He told the court he had told his wife the money was safe because FTX had Major League Baseball patches on the umpires' uniforms. He said, "I trusted the institution behind the brand." Edwin Garrison was a YouTuber and FTX brand ambassador. His followers used the platform on his recommendation. He told the court he could no longer face the comment section of his own videos. A retiree in Florida wrote that her late husband had deposited the proceeds of his life insurance into FTX before he died. She did not know which account the money was in. She still does not. Tens of thousands of customers, 73 countries, every one of them had wired their money to the fiat at FTX account. The 3 documented costs the court recorded each have a specific number. The financial loss. The government's sentencing memorandum calculated customer losses at approximately $8 billion. Investor losses at approximately $1.7 billion. Lender losses at approximately $1.3 billion. A total documented loss of more than $11 billion. The forfeiture order matched it, $11 billion, to be clawed back wherever it could be found. The regulatory cost. the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission filed parallel civil cases. The Commodity Futures Trading Commission concluded that FTX's commingling of customer funds violated the most fundamental rule of exchange regulation. Customer money is held separately in trust and never used for anything else. This rule existed before FTX was founded. It was written specifically to prevent what FTX did. FTX was never registered with the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. The human cost. The Department of Justice received victim impact statements from customers in 73 countries. The court summarized the recurring pattern at sentencing. The defendant lied to customers, and they trusted him because he made it easy to trust him. The restitution is ordered. The sentence is 25 years. The forfeiture is $11 billion. What cannot be returned is something no court has ever quantified. Every person who deposited $1 at FTX did the same thing. They found a wire instruction. They transferred their money to the account number on the instruction. They did not ask which bank held the account. They did not ask whose name the account was in. They did not ask whether the dollar still belonged to them after it arrived. Nobody asks these questions. We have never been taught to. The entire financial system depends on the wire instruction being correct. What the fiat at FTX account reveals is not unique to cryptocurrency. It is the same shape that exists every time you sign your name on a wire instruction, a 401k election form, or a transfer authorization on page 17 of a contract. He stole from people who lived inside a financial system that has never required ordinary customers to be able to check. Where things stand now is documented in the record. On the 28th of March, 2024, in courtroom 318 of the Daniel Patrick Moynihan United States Courthouse in Lower Manhattan, Judge Lewis Kaplan sentenced Sam Bankman-Fried to 25 years in federal prison. The forfeiture order, $11 billion. Carolyn Ellison, who cooperated and testified against him, received 24 months. She reported in November of 2024. Gary Wang received 3 years of supervised release, no prison. Nishad Singh received time served, no prison. The FTX bankruptcy estate has, as of its most recent quarterly filing, distributed approximately 119% of account balances measured in dollars at the November 2022 collapse price. Measured in the Bitcoin those dollars would have bought at today's value, it is a fraction. Sam Bankman-Fried has filed appeals. His parents have not been criminally charged. The fiat at FTX account at Silvergate Bank was closed. Silvergate Bank itself failed in March of 2023. The bank that held the account no longer exists. The keys, the access, the trust, and the account they all ran through. 2 questions before you go. 3 people inside FTX saw the fiat at FTX account. They saw the allow negative balance flag. They saw the borrowing. Caroline Ellison asked for it to slow down. Gary Wang wrote the code that made it invisible. Nishad Singh signed the review. None of them walked out. None of them filed a complaint. Who bears the most responsibility? Sam Bankman-Fried. The inner circle who saw it and stayed, or the system that gave one exchange the ability to route $8 billion through an account nobody ever had to verify? Sequoia Capital published a 13,000-word profile celebrating him weeks before the collapse. They removed it from their website. If the most sophisticated investors in the world trusted him, how would you have known not to? The account was called fiat at FTX. Nobody checked. I read every comment.